Good morning, dear students. Welcome to a new platform of teaching learning, a virtual classroom. After this long period of lockdown, I hope that you all are refreshed. First of all, I hope that you all are in pink health. Everyone at home, everyone in the family is fine. And uh, at least for initial few months, if not for the whole semester, then for few months at least, we have to adapt ourselves to this new method of education, of teaching learning. So coming to you is this virtual class. It's not you coming to the college and attending the classroom and your madam is very strict about your attendance. Hmm? You cannot bunk the class and all that. You have all relaxations at home, but yes, no compromise in studies. You have to devote full hours to the studies that we provide through this platform. Hmm? So um, I'm going to deal with two papers in this particular semester. One is CCE 5 and another is CCE 7. CCE 7 is for special English students. This year onwards, you will be introduced to one special paper of your main subject. So if you have main English, then you will have one particular paper in theory in the English subject. If you have main Gujarati, then in that again you will have main paper of the subject. So whatever is your main subject, you will be introduced to one more paper. So that is CCE 7, but we'll talk about CCE 7 later on. Right now we shall discuss something about CCE 5. In your first year, you studied two literary forms. One was lyric form and another was short story form, right? And in this semester, you are to study comedy form. Now see, literature itself is a very broad domain. Within literature, you have major two heads, prose and verse, gadya and padya. Under prose comes novel, drama, short story, travelogue, novella, essay, all these. And under verse, padya, you have poetry or what you call lyric. You have already studied various types of lyric, isn't it? Sonnet, ballad, ode, elegy, hymns and chants, so on and so forth. Now, if we talk about prose, and in prose, if we choose one particular form, one particular genre, that is drama, then in drama also you have so many types. Before we proceed in our discussion of various forms of drama, let us think of our Hindi movies. I know very well that you all are fond of watching movies, isn't it? And in this vacation, you must have watched many movies. Even I watched, but I watched the old Hindi movies more. Anyway, uh, think of Bollywood movies. There are different types of movies. Amuk thriller hoy che, amuk family drama. For example, there was a movie like Hum Saath Saath Hai. Then there was a movie like Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. These are all family dramas. Then you have some tragic movies also. You have uh, hilarious comedies also. For example, Hera Fairy and Fir Hera Fairy, Lage Raho Munna Bhai. These are all comedy films. Then you have action films. Mostly Salman Khan films are action films, isn't it? So, and then you have romantic films as well. Aab Lord Chale, for example. You have theme-based movies also made these days. For example, Tare Zameen Par, you can call it educational, Lunchbox or Stanley Ka Dibba, these Hindi medium, English medium, these are all education-based movies, isn't it? So as we have different types of films, similarly, there are different types of dramas. Undu hoy ke first we learn various types of dramas and then we apply all these to Hindi cinema. પણ ઊંધું એટલા માટે સમજાવું છું because we are more familiar with films than with dramas, more so in case of English dramas. So when we learn, when we know something which is our own, that's why Hindi films. So we shall be able to understand our English concept of drama better. So let us talk about the drama form. As we saw various types of Hindi films, in dramas also we have tragedy, comedy, tragicomedy. Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice is a tragicomedy. Then we have sentimental comedies. We have chronicle plays or historical plays, so on and so forth, right? Now, among all these various types of dramas, we are here concerned mainly with the comedies. Again, comedy also has so many types. It is like the layers of onion. We started with literature, major two categories of literature, prose and verse, then various types of verses or lyric, then prose, then again there are classifications. One particular classification, drama, again it has subtypes. Tragedy, comedy, tragicomedy, historical plays, like that. And then we took up one comedy form. Again, comedy has so many types or subtypes, you may call. So our concern in this semester will be on the form comedy. Clear? Now think, what is comedy? Think of any of your favorite film. Think of Golmaal, think of Hera Fairy, think of Lage Raho Munna Bhai and Munna Bhai MBBS. Which are the elements you find in these movies that are comic? Comedy is, simply speaking, that which makes you laugh, something which amuses you, something which entertains you, that which is full of fun. It is hilarious. You just roll on into laughter. Your eyes are filled with the tears due to laughter. So all these things you find in the movies too. So if you think of your favorite comedy film, then do you find all these elements? Is it laughable? Does it evoke laughter in you? Does it entertain you, amuse you? Does it relax you completely? If you get the answer yes, then it is certainly comic or comedy. Now, entire story of the film can be comedy. Characters involved, characters performing in the movie can be comic. Their costumes can be comic. Their makeup, their overall getup can be comic. Their language, dialogues can be comic. Lage Raho Munna Bhai and Munna Bhai MBBS ma language part che e પણ solid humor create કરે છે, isn't it? So these are again various, you can say, characteristics of comedy which in all contributes to make the play or the film comedy. અને આ બધા જ વિષય આપણે ડિટેલમાં જોવાના છે as we go to various topics in our semester. But at this stage, the very first question that should come to our mind is, how did comedy origin? Greek dramas के lyric form ની રીતે વાત કરીએ, because you have already studied the lyric form, then it originated in Greece. In Greece, one festival used to take place in the memory of, or to celebrate the fertility rites in the memory of god Dionysus. I hope you remember all these. And in this festival, it was a religious festival. So in this festival, the Greek people, they used to participate wholeheartedly, enthusiastically. And they used to sing and they used to dance. So various songs that were sung as a part of celebration, as a religious ritual, they came to be known as lyric. And it is in the same festival only that some of the people used to give comic performances. These performances later on came to be known as dramas or comedies, right? So this is in nutshell about the origin of comedy. Any literary form you take, any English literary form you take, mostly you will find the origin in Greece. Short story in Italy. So before we go further in our discussion, I have some 4 images to show you. Let me share the PPT with you now. Here you can see 4 different images. On your top left and down left, you have the images of masks. And I don't need to give any introduction of the images on top and down right. You have Mr. Bean and Charlie Chaplin. But masks, આપણા સૌરાષ્ટ્રના લોકમેળા જો કે આ વર્ષે તો unfortunately cancel થયો છે, but otherwise જે આપણા લોકમેળાઓ થાય છે તો એમાં masks are available for children. અને children enjoy wearing masks. They get all the fun out of it. અને જુદા જુદા કેરેક્ટર્સના માસ્ક પહેરીને આપણને હસાવતા પણ હોય ને આપણને ડરાવતા પણ હોય, isn't it? તો એ માઇથોલોજીકલ કેરેક્ટર્સ છે કે જે કાર્ટૂન્સ ચિલ્ડ્રન માટે આવે છે, તો એ કાર્ટૂન રિલેટેડ માસ્ક છે. કોઈ રિલિજિયસ ફિગર્સના માસ્ક રામ ભગવાનનું મળતું હોય છે, હનુમાનનું મળતું હોય છે, રાઈટ? ઓલ ધીસ. So it is for the fun of children. That understanding you have of mask, and this is how you might be knowing what mask is. But mask is actually a Greek tradition. Now we again come back to the same image. These masks, they were first introduced by the Greeks in their dramas, and in the ancient Greek convention of drama, people were not allowed, but to be particular, to be precise, female were not allowed to perform on the stage. So the male characters had to adopt the role of the female character, and they had to, be in the guise of a lady. They had to put on the full dress of a lady. So how to hide their original face, how to hide their original personality. So this mask came as a help. Then some characters, say for instance, the character of the devil, dragon. If you think of Shakespeare's drama, then Shakespeare's comedies has the characters of fools and clowns. So how to make oneself appear as a fool, as a clown, then that particular mask will help. And this is how they used to hide their original face and entertain the people. It was also considered as an art of makeup also, right? So basically it is a dramatic device, dramatic technique, mainly introduced by the Greeks. To go further, with the same image. જ્યારે કોમેડીની વાત હોય તો comedy is sometimes out of foolish act as well. Comedy is in fact the most difficult form of art, let me tell you. It is probably easy to perform in a tragedy, but more difficult to perform in a comedy. It is not all silly. It is not all negligence. It is not all stupidity. Stupidity having some sort of sensibility also. It is a witty laughter. કેવી રીતે એ આપણે જોઈશું જેમ આપણે આગળ જશું in our discussions. This is only primary, introductory, so I'm not going much into detail. But comedy is a thoughtful laughter. That is what scholars say. So it is difficult to create humor in comedy, to maintain that interest of humor in comedy. What you see in Mr. Bean is actually merely stupidity. It's all foolishness. And if you have seen any of Charlie Chaplin's comedies, then they are highly intelligent. You have to use your brain. You have to really understand. So these are various angles through which we can understand comedy. And as I say that most of the literary forms have evolved in Greece. So is with the form comedy also. We now start with our actual discussion of origin and development of comedy. We shall begin with basic understanding. We shall go to Greek comedies and Roman English. Let us go by our PPT. The English word comedy mainly comes from the Greek word komoidia. Komoidia in Greek means any humorous discourse or work intended to amuse by creating humor or creating laughter. In Italy, the word is commedia. You have to remember both these etymological words because you can have in the MCQ what is the origin of the word comedy, in which dramatic tradition it evolved, right? 4 options. So there can be an MCQ here. So originally it was found, it was invented in the ancient Greece. Komoidia, any humorous work or discourse that amuses by creating laughter. And in Italy, the word is commedia. So Greeks and Roman playwrights, they confined the word comedy to only the stage performances. Any dramatic performance which is performed on stage with all the dramatic devices in it, it was considered as comedy. And the chief condition of comedy is that it should have a happy ending. Shakespeare's comedies, we will discuss Shakespeare's comedies also later on, but Shakespeare's comedies you must be familiar with. So if you see that, then most of Shakespeare's plays, they end in the chiming of the marriage bells. You have either the announcement of the wedding or you have the very marriage ceremony taking place. So it is all a happy ending. There is a problem, there is a fight, there is a conflict, and there is a happy solution, right? So any humorous discourse that is performed on the stage and it is intended to create laughter, and if it is a happy ending, it was considered a comedy by the Greek and Roman playwrights. And that was in the ancient times. We come down, we talk about the Middle Ages in Greece. Then, the understanding of the term comedy was expanded. And in the Middle Ages, the playwrights said that not only the stage performance, but even if there is a long narrative poem which fulfills all the former criteria, it is humorous, it has a happy ending, it is amusing, then that narrative poem can also be considered as comedy. So here it is written. And during the Middle Ages, the term comedy became synonymous with satire and later on humor in general. Humor and satire always go hand in hand. It is difficult to produce comedy with no satire in it. In fact, it is a gentle or mild sarcasm that makes you laugh. And one of the aims of comedy is to correct the ill manners of the character or the society in general. And when you are to correct someone, then what is the way? Should you go and say that, hey, Mr. X, this is wrong in you? No, then it will hurt that Mr. X. The best way is to create such a situation in which Mr. X is involved, and through, as I say, mild and gentle sarcasm, you make someone realize in a laughing manner, you inform the person about his or her folly or weakness, right? So humor and satire, they always go hand in hand. So even the element of satire came to be introduced in the Middle Ages in Greece. To go further, gradually it came more and more to be associated with any performance intended to cause laughter. Any performance intended to cause laughter. I already said that not only the stage performance, not only the dramatic performance, but also long narrative poems came to be considered as comedy. And if you talk about the present times, forget Greek comedies, forget English comedies, forget Shakespeare, everything. If we talk about the present times, then we are now in the age where we have the shows like stand-up comedy. You must be watching Kapil Sharma's show. You must be watching Big Boss, or you must at least be familiar with these kinds of shows, right? They are stand-up comedy shows. So what is a stand-up comedy? You have one comedian, one person who acts in a comic way, and he gives a live performance in front of the audience. And entire scenario is created in a way, entire script is prepared in a way that it seems that the comedian is interacting, is creating a dialogue with the audience. But no, actually the comedian is not into the dialogue with the audience. They are involved with the comedian. They flow with the presentation of the comedian. But what comedian does is simply a comic monologue. So this is what stand-up comedy is. So we have now reached to that stage where we don't have a strict classifications, watertight compartments. Okay, if this, then comedy. If something else, then it's not comedy. So that is what our last point in the basic introduction of comedy is, that 20th century scholars, however, prefer the term laughter to comprehensively refer to the whole gamut of comic. Comprehensively refer, not like only stage performance, humorous stage performance is comedy, or long narrative poem with happy ending is comedy. No such bifurcations. It is now a comprehensive term, and it covers the whole gamut of comedy, avoiding other classifications. As I said in the beginning, comedy has also originated in Greece, and in Greece we have 3 different ages. Entire comedy form in Greece has originated into 3 different phases, or in 3 different ages. The first is Old Comedy, written in the 5th century BC. Then second, you have Middle Comedy, 400 to 323 BC. And New Comedy, 320 BC to mid 3rd century BC. This is the time period of Old, Middle, and New Comedy. You have to remember the time period from MCQ point of view. Now, what we had in the Old Comedy? what were the subject matters. Then it was written on the then social political satires. The society at that time or in the Greece was the target. Social customs, social norms, the basic lifestyle of the olden Greek times, that became the subject matter of old comedies. Then you also had political commentaries, political affairs of the time becoming the subject matter of old comedy. And social norms, social conventions, they were the prime focus. Then you come to middle comedy, 400 to 323 BC. Then there is a shift from old comedy to middle comedy. There is entirely a new subject matter introduced. It becomes less social, and you have mock reenactment of myth. So, like old comedies, they were pure, they were original, they were highly imaginative work. Whatever the writers saw in the society, they captured and they wrote. Middle comedy, then it took its source from some myth, from some folklore, from some legend, and then they presented that myth, that legend in a comic way. So mock reenactment of myth, that was the subject matter of the middle comedy. And then we come to new comedy, 323 BC to 3rd century BC. Then the focus was on the family life and relations, love and all that. Right? So all the three ages of Greek comedies, they mark a noteworthy shift in the subject matter, in the very development of the form, various other elements that were introduced, so on and so forth. I hope you are clear with our discussion so far. What is comedy? Comparison with the Hindi cinema. Then we talked about basic understanding of comedy in the olden Greek times, middle times, Greek and Roman playwrights, how they viewed comedy. We referred to 20th century, 21st century stand-up comedy shows as well. And then we saw 3 ages of Greek comedy. We shall quickly try to understand what are the characteristics of old and middle comedy. To go further in our discussion, as I said, old comedy was original, not based on any myth. It did not take any source from anywhere. It focused on social and political satires, and it was, more concerned with vigorous concern it had with social happenings, social events, and outrageous ideas. Something which is hardly believable, something which is not so acceptable, foolish. Those kinds of ideas were given as plausible solutions, practical solutions to the social political problems that were addressed in the old Greek comedies. It was only the beginning of the comedies in Greece. So the form-wise, comedy was not ripe. It was not a mature form. The dramatists had still not adopted the skills, the techniques. They were still being introduced to the writing of the comedy plays. And that is why there were some loopholes. Language-wise, it was obscene, there was vulgarity. What else are the characteristics? Let us see. Obscenity in language and gestures, to ridicule the characters without naming them. Generally, the drama has characters properly named. And when the characters are not given the names, it creates a confusion. And sometimes this confusion can also arouse humor, laughter. And obscenity in language and gesture, such an odd behavior, something untoward action, something which is some habit, some gesture that create laughter. some abusive words, some bad words, which can actually be sarcastic, and that leads to humor in the characters also and in the audience also, right? So these were the few things that old Greek comedies introduced. Chorus, you already know about chorus very well. It was an integral part of the Greek dramas. Uh, I think in your first year only you have studied the term chorus. Chorus in drama is different, and a chorus in lyric is also different. Chorus in drama, then to give you a recap of the function of the chorus in drama, uh, they give a preamble. Uh, then sometimes when the act changes or the scene changes, and they come to introduce new characters whom we are to meet in the next scene or next act, they summarize the previous act or scene, and they build an atmosphere, or they give an introduction to the coming act or scene. Scenes of murder and violence which are not to be shown on the stage, they are also described by the chorus. And at the end, as we have Falashruti in our Sanskrit dramatic tradition, so at the end they come to give the message. So this is the function of the chorus. Chorus in comedy again has little different role to play. They come as a group or as a single character, as we have clown, and they come to amuse.